There. Okay. So from what I remember, we finished up everything to do with basic search operators, and now we were to start on advanced search. Uh, am I correct? Just jogging my memory, making sure I'm not missing out.
Yeah,
Uh,
that sounds about right to me.
yeah. Yeah. So let's start with the structure of how the advanced operators are set or how the format is set. I'm going to start with this slide. This is going to tell you um, how the format is segmented. So let's see, where is the slideshow? So these are the advanced operators that we'll be working with. There aren't a whole lot of them. There used to be far too many. I remember there used to be at least twice as many, but they got depreciated, or you could say that they were sort of they started to um, do away with it, and now we are left with these that you're looking at. Thing is that now we have to be even more creative because we have to do things with these that are leftovers that earlier we had the facility like the blogs we had to search. There used to be operators like blog colon or in blog. There was one that said author with a colon and so on. But we found our way to get those working in a different way. But we would look at the ones that you are seeing in my screen, and then I'll show you first of all what they mean, and then we will look at the structure of it. So in the left hand side where it says snippets related, this means that we have actually separated these or grouped them under these headings in red fonts. So snippets related are actually three different types. The ones that query the tags, or whenever we say tags, we're talking about HTML tags. So whatever is inside of the title tag, that gets queried by using in title colon or and all in title colon. Same way, description tag and body of text, which means deeper textual query, that's going to look up everything in the body of text of those pages. We'll be using in text colon, all in text colon. And you could see that these are the words, like in title is the entire word. And then it is followed by a colon sign without any gaps in between the last alphabet of the word in title, with E not separating or not leaving any gap um, between the colon sign and the alphabet E. And this is very important. So the gaps are not there, but the colon sign has a meaning for the search to get its cue or a trigger that says that in title is not actually a word, but because of that colon sign, it has become an operator, which now gives a different meaning to the word in title. So the colon sign is very important. And at the very bottom, it says URLs. If you have to query any of the words in the body of the URL, you're going to use in URL colon and all in URL colon. Because these three, in title, in text, and in URL, basically are fetching information or comparing your search query or query words within those specified areas or specific segment of the content page. They are given, or they are responsible for bringing that small piece of information called snippet. So that's why we call it snippets related. Then we have a format restrictor, we call it, which means we want to restrict or restrain the search to look for those content that are within a certain file type or within a file that is basically is either a PDF or any specific format which is supported by the file type colon operator. In other words, you could say that in Google search, file type colon supports or executes in within certain format types. Like there could be other formats which you think or you may think would also be supported, but they are actually not the ones that the file type will be able to get to. So, what are those? We have a list of it. We are going to look them up. Then we've got source of info, which means, just doing searches in specific type of with specific relationship to the source of where it is coming from or where the information can be hiding. So it is kind of a deeper search, but it is got a few different ways of how the operators would function based on what is written before the colon sign, like related colon would bring a certain type of, or it would be a restrictor to find sources from certain type of um, uh, content pages. The source colon similarly has another function, link colon has another, but they're all get trying to catch things within certain sources or specific areas within the entire index pages, not just a single content page but within the index, that's where it's querying. Then we've got domain restrictor site colon, restricting your search to a certain domain. Anything that comes back is actually connected directly to or is an extension of a specific domain. So that is site colon. We've got date range before and after, before a certain date and after a certain date. And the way you're going to specify those dates, that's important. Before and after both can be used in a single search query or individually. Before colon and after can be also used separately uh, for, depending on if you want before a certain date or after a certain date. So that needs to be specified. Then we approximately search we've done around. There's symbols and notations here that we use. One of the important one is asterisks. Now I remember, I think we didn't finish up asterisks the last time we were working with around. We were still not done with asterisk. Anyway, now that I remember, we have to finish this one as well. And then there are these abbreviations of country codes that we use and even language codes that those are not written here, but these en for instance is actually these are en is for language and d is also for language, us is for the country, uk, and so anyway, bottom line is there's symbols and notations that we will deal with separately. So um, to start with, and not forgetting the asterisk, let's do asterisk after I have given you introduction to the structure of these restrictors or operators. We just call them advanced operator. All of these are advanced operators. So taking an example, which one I have here, let's see. Let's look at the structure first. So when we have something that is written as Word, like file type is something which is responsible for or given given um, the, the property, or it has a value that needs to declare another value as if it is equal to. So if file type colon PDF is written as you are seeing right now, which means that file type colon is an operator, and whatever is declared value or property name is on the right of it, or the right hand side of the colon sign, without leaving any gaps. So PDF is a declared property value, whereas file type is called a property name. So name means that whatever is declared after the colon is has to be equal to, or has to be a value which is given by the word file type to whatever is declared as, in this case, the word PDF. Okay. So few things we will learn about uh, the structure. I'm going to write the same um, thing here just to explain a little bit more. So let's look at the format. And even before I do that, let me zoom in a little bit. Okay. Okay. So let's say we say advanced operator value format. In the first instance, slide is okay. Now it's okay. So let's suppose I wrote file type colon and PDF. Now note few things. One is that the file type is a word, really. If I don't put a colon sign, it will be considered a word like this. If I leave a gap and put a colon sign with a gap in between colon and the word file type, the file type is still going to be considered as a word and not as a function. So what makes it a function is the colon sign. This colon sign means that I'm declaring something that needs to be acted upon, or the search has to respond as if it is triggering a process which, without the use of colon sign, is either incomplete or non-existent, meaning that colon sign is what will make things happen for whatever is declared as uh, uh, a property value that needs to be acted upon. So the action is colon sign. What needs to be acted upon, it comes right after the colon sign, and whatever is before used as a word is actually the main interpreter, or it is the name of what you need to get done as a function. So when I say PDF, it means that PDF is a file format and therefore has a relationship to the word file type and the action of colon sign. If I wrote, instead of PDF, I wrote just, let's say, AOFIRS, it is meaningless, meaning that the relationship exists between what is declared or what is considered as valid value to be parsed after the colon sign in relationship to whatever is written here as a word. Um, like file type, for instance, the relationship it creates with what gets declared after colon is for formats only, file formats. So it could be PDF or could be Excel, you know, could be any other format which is recognized by the function of file type. If it is a function, if it is, let's say, a file that is JPEG, for example, and you want something to be queried uh, as a JPEG file, then the word JPEG, even though it is a valid extension of some sort, which is for exclusively for the pictures, photos, and so on, images, but it is not going to be entertained, or it will not function as an executable query. Why? Because the format JPEG is not supported by Google yet against or with relationship to the word file type or the function file type colon. Um, I have something here in the book that is more like it's a list of those file formats that that Google will support. So if you were to look at them up on page 118, you will find that there is a list of searchable file types, which means that you have to be sure and know what are these formats. For instance, Adobe Flash, PDF, these are all executable files for the restrictor file type, including XLS, which is Microsoft Office Suite, PowerPoints, Microsoft Word, and so on. Some of the odd formats that you don't use particularly, like I don't know, some of them are let's say KML and KMZ. These are very important file formats for certain type of searches, especially if you are an investigative journalist or a journalist generally looking for some satellite images to collect evidence or to get something that is corroborative to your story, to support that, to see through satellite images what existed prior, at certain point in time, as historical files. You may not be able to get it through regular search, but if you do file type with KMZ and KML, they should do it for you, because Google does have a specific listing or repository or index of Google Earth images. So depending on what your need is, but in our case, mostly we'd like to query typically XLS files or micro PowerPoints, Microsoft Words, PDFs mostly. So those are typical ones. But the question arises that for some of the files which are commonly searched, or the files that we'd like to look for quickly, are images or even multimedia files like MOV extensions, for instance, for MPEG files, and so on. But those um, are not searchable through the file type colon. And then there is a way around it, like we can still search them, but there is, but not through file type colon. So what are those ways of doing it? That's what we'll be discussing as well. For now, with the format that I'm trying to give you an idea of what is important to remember in using the format, which is a typical format, we need to remember that from the structure of it, which for now is used, which we're using a file type as an example. So it goes for every other operator that we'll come across. They would have more or less the same structure, which means there would be a name in words followed by the colon sign, and then there's a declared value. So here the file type is shown as um, a property name. The colon sign, we'd like to call it the property operator, and whatever is declared after, we call it a property value. So this is just technical terms, but only to explain the structure of the advanced operators and their functions. Now, one more thing that is important in this slide, which is hiding in the bottom right-hand corner right here, as you can see, it is saying that selection of the advanced operator, or how the naming works for the advanced operator, you have to be aware. And as I explained also, that whatever gets declared on the right hand side as a property value has to have a direct relationship to what the property name says. So if the property name is, say, in title colon, or in text colon and in URL colon, the relationship which makes it mandatory for you to be uh, writing or declaring anything after the colon sign has to be textual in nature, which means it doesn't have to be uh, um, uh, and as in the file type, you must declare the extension type or something that is recognized by file type. So there is this specification which needs to be followed for what the property value has to represent. But in title, in text, and in URL, you can use text only, which means you can use the words. It doesn't have to be an extension like PDF. On the other hand, if you don't use the word PDF, which is an extension name of a specific Adobe file type, it is not going to work with the file type. And if you're going to use in title colon or in text colon in URL colon, whatever comes or after the colon sign, even if it is a PDF, the word itself, it will not be considered extension, but rather a text or a word, which is only going to match the word itself and not the file type, because that's what in title and in text and in URL represents, meaning that it is any kind of text. It could be word or number of words or a long search phrase, whatever comes after the colon can be textual in nature. Okay. In file types, it has to be a file format. In date format, like before colon and after colon, you have to write the dates in with a certain structure or format of the date that is recommended for using these um, advanced operators for date ranges. So then there is this format issue that you have to be uh, aware of. In any case, whatever you write after the before colon will be considered a date, but when it is written in a certain format or in a certain way. Then cite, you have to, or with link colon or with source colon, you have to put the domain name or something that tells the search that it is a domain, meaning that a name followed by the extension of that domain, like .org, .com, and so on. So this is what it is telling you. In the URL format, like where you have to declare something or write something that looks like a domain or has a domain name included in the URL, will be used with the operators like link colon, source colon, and in URL colon. So this is just the intro or just the basics explaining the structure of it. Um, when we use advanced operators, we are actually making a search either more restricted by putting in different types of restrictor in the form of operators. And also, if we look at it carefully, we could use multiple operators in a single search string, which is all advanced operators. Um, or the concept that we are going to look for is that how many of those or what type of operators can function with each other, assuming we are just now exclusively talking about advanced operator. And then there are certain advanced operators that only work alone, meaning you cannot mix more than one instance of that advanced operator in a single search query. That means it will not coexist with any other advanced operator. So now look at the example right here. It's just something that we know of, but it is explained slightly better here, talking about how the two different queries merge together to make the advanced operators work in coherence with each other, or how they are coordinated in a single search with multiple instances, if it needs to be done that way. So if this is one query, where I'm using site colon and I'm using irs.gov, uh, not worrying about how the site operator works, but just because it's an example, assuming that it is a correct query and we want a restrictor of a site operator to default or to bring pages from irs.gov domain and form 1040 download. These are the words. Form 1040 is a phrase. If this was one query and the other query was file type, as you can see, restricting the same search, not particularly from the irs.gov, but the only restrictor is the format of the type of file. So if these two needs to be merged together, where I want site to be one restrictor and file type to be another, and I want both of these to be put together as single operation, I could probably write it like this, right? And something that you're familiar with already. So the idea in this slide is showing that these two queries can work independently, but since you want more restrictors added to the site or more restrictor added to the file type, we can merge these two independent queries together and form and create one single search with the irs.gov followed by form 1040 followed by file type PDF and the word download included. So this is a merger of these two to make it work in a single stroke or in one go. It will do the job with a better restrictor functioning together. So nothing more to it except that it is saying for those who wanted better understanding of how multiple operators can function in advanced queries. This is the reason and this is the way you can merge them together. Uh, nothing, uh, nothing more than that. Some of the do's and don't do's, basic rules are shown in this examples. These are just basic rules and there'll be others. When the time comes, we will deal with them. Otherwise, it's just too many rules and might get confusing. So some that we'll discuss 1 through 6 for writing the query or the format in which you can run these queries. One obvious thing in rule 1 is mind the gaps. You don't want a gap after the colon sign and the search term that you're putting, uh, after the colon sign. So no gap here. There should be no gap in this one. In the third one, no gaps on either side. Fourth one is correct, whereas 1, 2, 3 are incorrect. No big deal. Now, when we are putting the query with the advanced operators written as shown in this one, the first one right here, Internet Research Specialist, followed by file type colon PDF, you can expect that the results that will follow, say numbering, say 1000 results as an example. And if you run the second query by moving or switching the operator file type and putting it before the search term, you would still get 1000 results. So there would be no difference in the number of results or the results themselves if you switch the position of these advanced operators. So file type after the term or before the term would not make any difference, right? But there would be some methods which would require for you to be more careful about the placement of advanced operators, especially the ones that you use with the minus signs. So we're not discussing that. This rule is more generic, generality of it. It wouldn't make any difference. And when there are exceptions, I'll let you know. In number 3, some operators don't function with other operators, like they are called absolute command or absolute operators that cannot coexist with any others. For example, all in title, anything that has the word all in it, usually that means that the territory belongs to this one operator to work in the query. It wouldn't give space to any other operator to work alongside it or anywhere in that search. So these are some examples, and there could be others, and I will show it to you. But what it is saying is that be aware that there would be operators that you cannot put that you cannot use it multiple times. The colon sign. This is more interesting than perhaps we used to think, and we played with it a bit, and we found out that the colon sign is very useful as an isolated function, meaning that it would not be dependent on anything that is declared, or a name of the property may not be declared. Yet the colon sign will have a function which will let it work independently and without regards to what the property name represents, or even if you don't use any property name. That are some of the examples I'd like to run. Why don't we just run them now? Those we can take examples from file type. Since we are dealing with file type, let's start with the file type operator. Okay. There. Okay, I'd like to take 10 minutes a little bit early because I'm be shuffling some slides. And then we take a break right now, and I'll return in 10 minutes. If-
Sounds good.
All
Okay,
right,
see you
thanks.
soon.
See you in a bit. See you in a bit. Okay, I'm back. We can start now. Dorothy, James, Justin, we are ready. And just want a nod from you if you can see my screen and if my voice is clear.
Yep.
Just
All
okay.
good.
Thank you very
All
much.
working.
Thanks. Thanks. All good to go. Um, Now I have to show you with the examples and some of the ways. I'm just trying to find what could be the better words to use. So let's just pick up something from here. Mm, I will take this example first, which is an incorrect search query, and then we'll correct it. This way, I'd be able to show you exactly what I mean. I'll run it in the browser in incognito. Okay, so first, let's clear up that business with the colon sign. What is the colon sign thing, and how that could overcome this barrier where it's not able to look for JPEGs or certain other formats, yet we'd be able to make it work uh, in by restructuring something. So let's suppose I take an example 1.1 before I go get to the example 2. The query I will make here is, let's say, let's call it a white horse. And let's say we want a file type. And here I'm going to look for the JPEG or PNG or the type of files which are not actually going to be pulled because they are not entertained by the Google search. So I'm going to use this as an example. And if I put JPEG here, let's see what it's going to do. So the format, generally, we'd like to assume that the format JPEG should work because, how would it not allow, or how would the search not allow for an important image file like JPEG to be ignored? But it does that. We get no result with the JPEG. Similarly, if I changed it to PNG, it won't work. It's totally dead. But there is a work around this. And if I want a PNG file and I want to query it with just the colon sign, nothing else, just the colon sign, and assuming white horse is one search term and without leaving any gaps, I'm going to put a colon sign followed by the PNG. So no word like file type is used in this case. And I've used colon sign and PNG here. Let's see what it's going to do. It'll start bringing the results. Okay. So the function colon sign is saying that, in other words, it is saying that I need a white horse and the property name is white horse, whereas the declared value or the property value is PNG, which is the file name. And only because there is a colon sign in between both of these words, PNG and white horse, they are supposed to function and correlate with each other, or they are forced to act together to find one of the two, either PNG against white horse or white horse against PNG. So this is where you will start finding the results. Okay. So this is one way of doing the search. Generally, what happens when we are doing image, okay, let's look at the typical image searching. And when we are on Google, we can do image searches if we'd like. There is a separate um, white horse. There is a separate algorithms that allows us to do image searches like this one, for instance, at the top. Whenever we are looking for images, we generally like to use the word images as the function, which is on the top navigation. And when we do that, we are basically dissociating ourselves from the query search, really, that is different from how the image or images search works as a separate set of algorithms. And even the indexing of images under the image search is very different. And the uh, way in which images are found as a method is also very different from doing regular searches, meaning that the images is separate algorithms versus doing your query searches by creating a query that is going to reach out for that content pages. So there is this difference, and it's more flexible way when we are doing query searches to look for a certain value or certain content specific to your search, or it is more controlled search. When we do image searches, we are totally dependent on algorithms that are less in our control and more, a sort of uh, an implied kind of a context that takes precedence over the query itself. So it is thrown at you from a from a different algorithmic process. So when we are doing whiteboards and we specifically click on images, we are not doing the query search. Okay, we are just doing the database search uh, in a different way. I just want you to understand this concept. But since we have this limitation of the type of files or file types using file type colon, we had to find a way to be able to make that work in a query situation. This is why we are using the colon sign. Okay, so the colon sign has a lot of value in so many different ways. I can show you a few examples from the book that will make it even more clear for you. Mm, Take this example. Here we have a query that says IRS 1040 colon PDF. Let's take this example. IRS 1040. Let's say this is the form I need. Put them within quotes so it is together. In fact, let me just lose just to make it even more acceptable. And I say I need a PDF file. Okay. I can run this query just by using colon, which means that I have declared on the left, and I've noticed I'm using the format like PDF here. Okay. And then I'm going to show you another example where I would execute a similar query, except that I will use the file type. Okay. 1040. And I say file type. So in 1.2 and 1.3, we don't have a problem with using the acceptable format of PDF, which would work fine with file type. And query 1.2 can be better executed with the way I've written it in 1.3. Yet there is a difference in what gets returned back to us. First, let me explain, then we will try to run it on in the browser. So what will happen in 1.2 is that the PDF formats will be found on pages that contain this format or this file title or any title of PDF that is listed on the content page. And also, it will look for the PDF files directly, meaning that when you click at the results, it would open up the PDF file, which means these are index PDF files. But also, it will look for those pages that has a mention of IRS 1040 with the PDF files that are displayed on the page. So it is going to get even more results back to us. Okay, so this is the advantage of 1.2. In 1.3, it will only fetch those files that are indexed in PDF format initially, but these may not be listed as title, or they may not be including those pages that displays these formats being there, which might mean that you will have to go to those pages and then click on them to get to the actual PDF file. So that process itself could be beneficial if you use the query 1.2, which would look for both types of presence of PDFs, whereas 1.3 exclusively will fetch those that are actually indexed as PDF without regards to if they're listed somewhere on those content pages. I can take you back to the slides to give you, so this is 215. I have to come back to this one later. Like for instance, in this page, if you remember, we were looking at a format of a content page. So this was the content page. Now here on this page, you could see that there is a listing of PDF files. So it could be, a document, one document would have one title, there could be another document or third, but they are all listed as part of the content page and not the page itself. So just this listing, if you run file type colon, will not be found, but if you run the query with just the colon sign, it will find these ones as well as the ones that are clickable as PDF files, or when you click on those snippets, only the PDF page appears. So that would be the restriction if you use file type colon. But with the colon sign alone, you can get not only pages that have a mention of these or listing of these PDFs, but also the other PDFs that are actually stored as PDF files originally. So you will get a lot more results that way. We use this technique to not miss those pages that actually are not indexed as PDFs. Yet we'll be able to find a clue or a place where they are placed as a or displayed somewhere that we can click on later. So that's the difference between using the colon sign and using the file type colon. 215, that's where we were. So let me get back to this one. Okay. Do you want me to run it as a query? We can, I can try that. Let's do it. Why not? So let me run this one. There's the colon sign and PDF. Okay. 3,680,000. See these icons that get returned with the word PDF in it. This means that if I click on this, I'll get to the PDF file directly. So if I open it in a link, it will open the PDF. It is open, see, 1040 form. But these ones, for example, they don't have an icon like the PDF icon here. This one has it, this one has it, this one doesn't have it. So when you click on these pages that don't have the icon, they would have a listing or a mention of a PDF file somewhere on that content page, but they are included in this, uh, when we run it this way. But if I use the word file type, and keeping in mind that we got 3,680,000 results. Now, if I am going to use file type, hmm,
I think you've just got a double colon in there.
I while I was traveling, I lost my glasses, for my nearsight, far-sightedness, and I have to use this one. Yes, this is where I made a mistake. Okay. So I got far less results. See, I got only 977,000 results. And here I got 3,680,000 results. So it captured a lot many files that were not only a direct displaying of the PDFs, but also, I'm sorry, in this one, it's the opposite. I got only those that are listed or indexed as exclusively as PDF files. So that's why there are less results. If I want to increase the scope of my results, I would be using my preferred query would be this, okay, without using the file type. Is this understood somewhat, or is it clear enough?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Um, by the way, this is not explained uh, in as much detail as I just explained it to you. A lot of time there remains a bit of a confusion. It's just few lines that says it all. So, it's less clearer. So now I think it's totally clear. Now, next thing that we do with the file type. Okay. Now, what happens if you want to look for something in few different file formats? But you're specifically interested in, let's say, two or three formats and nothing else to be displayed, which means the restrictor file type would want to find more than one type of files to look for those search terms. Let me take an example from the book. It's easier for me. Otherwise, I have to think of one. Let me see. Okay, this one, for example. Okay, I have this already. So now I'm going to get to 2 and play with this one a little bit. So let's say I want to look for the term Elasticsearch Census 2013, both in XLS format and in PDF format. Now, I'm not going to do PDF for now. Let me just do PPT, okay? Because PPT is recognized. Now, these days, they put an X as an edit extension, but I'll just use these two, XLS and by the way, just so you know, the file type command would not coexist with along with another instance of it, as it sort of contradicts or cancels each other, only because file type essentially, when they brought it out, it is supposed to act as a single instance or one specific format that you can look for. That was the idea. But the need was for a lot of research to find it in different formats all at the same time. And then when the result comes, you can make your selection out of those snippets of whichever information set works for you. But right now, let's say I have XLS and PowerPoint, and I want these two to run together. The question is if it's going to work or not. So you think it should work, like theoretically, with these two together, or just based on your best logic that you can put in there? What do you say? It should work ideally or not?
Yeah, I'd suggest that they would be contradictory.
Yes. Logic, that's just common sense. Like if there is one file you want and then you want another file and they're like find both of these, um it's like you're telling the search to, there is no or in there. There is no option of find either, which would perhaps be the better way of describing it in logical terms. But if you don't have the option of or, it is saying that find both together, uh, and at the same time contradicting each other, that uh, you have to find XLS along with PPT. when these are absolute command, it means that only one should exist. So it will not work. The only way it's going to work is, like I said, you have to give it an or. So if I put a vertical bar that says that find either XLS or PPT, it could be a better way of reaching out and getting the results, only because now you will get both. You will get PPTs and XLS, you know, or in sometimes acts as if it is asking to find both, but the ranking algorithms might bring some of the PPTs first, XLS, being less popular, or some of the XLS titles less popular will just, keep appearing, but not have a precedence over PowerPoint. So all this is going to happen. But the bottom line here is that at least when we execute it this way, it is going to bring something back to us, and let's see what it does. So with this OR that I've put in, um, and by the way, this is not the search result. This is an advertisement. So let me just click on this and see what it is giving me. Just 7 results. Maybe we can use better search terms. Take another example. But you saw that it worked. Okay, so that's one thing that we have to um, make sure that at least it is executable. Uh, this one, this one could work better for us because we'll get more results, and then we'll see the pattern it takes. Never mind the minus sign. Let's And I'm not going to use the PDF. I'll tell you why I won't do it. I will use other formats, but I will not make a selection or a choice with the PDF in there. Here, I'm changing my XLS to what is that? DOC file. So doc file and XLS is what I want. And more than likely, these two will not work together unless I put a vertical bar. So I'm going to put a vertical bar here and see what comes back to me. So here I see that I get doc files as well as XLS files. Okay. But not that doc has precedence over XLS or XLS. It just depends on what is more popular and depending on the terms that you want search. So the ranking theorem will bring it in a pattern which would not guarantee what comes first or after. So we got doc, we got XLS, um, but these are the only two that we'll get. We are not going to get any other format because this restrictor means don't get me anything other than what I've asked for. So all of these docs, XLS docs, XLS, these are shown here. Now, what if I want to go a little bit further and do a search at the same time? I want, along with the doc and XLS, I want PowerPoints. So let me use file type again, and I'll say PPT format. Now I've extended my search to PowerPoint, and let's see what it will do. I got PowerPoint, I got doc, I got XLS, and nothing else. I did not get any of these in PDF formats. Okay. XLS, doc, doc. Okay, so you saw this part. Now, first I'll put it in record that we have done these queries, and then I'll show you something that is um, not conventional, I would say. Rather, it is something which is very peculiar, a behavior which um, you will find very interesting. So, first of all, in 2.3, you saw we did XLS, we did doc, we did PowerPoint. But what is missing is PDF. Okay. So imagine if I ran PDF along with every other file that we searched for before, and we add file type PDF. Now we going to run it and see what makes it different in its execution when we compare it with 2.1 or 2.3. Can you read? Can you look at, check the formats that are coming up? In any of these, do you see doc or XLS or PowerPoint? At least I don't up until now, and we've got this like 50 results on one SERP pages. So I'm scrolling it down all the way down, and I still don't see any other format other than PDF. If I, yeah, that's a lot of results, and still no sign of XLS doc or PowerPoint, right? So what's going on here is the question. Like, I mean, why would XLS and doc or PowerPoint not appear at all? Even in the results that will be more than, and there are 9,330,000. So it might just, I can even take you to the next page. You'll still see the same pattern. All PDFs and nothing, um, nothing else. PDFs, and so it continues. Okay. So what is happening when you use the PDF as a comparable or as something that should be found along with other formats is that PDF takes precedence or takes over as the more discoverable file or something that is given the privilege to have to be found in that particular format against any other format. So if there was an XLS, let's say somewhere that has these wordings there, but uh, there is more instances of it being found in the PDF format, you will invariably see PDFs first, or maybe XLS will be found somewhere down when you know, keep turning the pages, keep going to the next SERPs. And that is even a chance because if you know the search engine is not delivering all the results, like it's not delivering 9,330,000. So you may never even find those files. In a way, what happens when you use the file type with the PDF in there is that the PDF will shadow or overshadow every other format. So if I have to do a search for something in PDF format, I'll do it separate. There is no need to put one file against or alongside others using OR. So this is one thing that is different or that is unconventional, something which doesn't make sense, yet it is programmed that way. So you don't want to do or compare in multiple file formats you're using. Don't use PDF. You can look for other formats except PDF. Okay. Next thing is use of minus signs, right? when you don't want certain file format to be found exclusively, right? So there could be HTML pages returned, all other formats except for one format you don't want. So how are you going to write that query? So I'm going to work with this query first and explain to you how the minus sign is. Now the minus sign is going to be very useful for us. Now we would know the real utilization of a minus sign when we have to exclude certain formats from appearing, as in the example 3. I will make sure that I put a minus sign that hugs and touches the first alphabet of the word file type, which is the operator itself. So there's no gap. And when I say minus file type PDF, it means that whatever needs to be found with these um, uh, key terms um, should be coming from the file formats that excludes PDFs. By the way, when we are at the time of indexing, when the website is got PDF pages included in the body or in the HTML text, the indexing process uses a mechanism that um, extracts the PDF content in the Word kind of, not Word, in the textual format, let's call it, and it indexes it separately as if it is a file which is tied to the PDF, but it is translated into text format temporarily, which means it is going to come back to, or it is going to reform again back into the PDF format at later stage when the query is calling for the PDF to be searched. It will only search the textual part, which is already extracted and placed somewhere on temporary basis. And that's how it is going to look for and match the titles in the PDF and everything else in the body of its text. Okay. So you could think that at the time when you look at something in the PDF format, actually it is searching each and every word, or depending on the query you're running, it can do, it can match or look for terms in the entire body of that PDF file. Anyway, for now, let's suppose that I don't want PDF format. This is how I'm going to write it. Now, if I want some other formats to not be found, I can also do that. But let me just talk about the structure of this query for 1 second quickly. If I had to put the minus sign or the file type in the beginning instead of putting or placing it at the very end, it should not make a difference based on how we have looked at it from where you have switched the file type uh, from one place to another, or where it was at the very end and you switched it to the very beginning of it, and it was all okay because the number of results would appear the same. But when you are using a minus sign with the file type, the placement of file type has to take one thing that has to be avoided is to not place the file type in the beginning of the query. So if I replace this one and put it here in the beginning, it will be incorrect for me to do that, or it is not a good convention, let's call it. Okay, you will get the result, but it will not be as accurate. Okay, this is not the best way to write any operator with the minus sign or with the exclusion when you begin writing your search query. Okay. So I would say, I wouldn't say incorrect, I would say not suggested. Correct. Whereas, you know how when we were doing the placement of the file type or any operator, that's an advanced operator to act the same way, even with the placement switched. So if it was a query like this, it will be correct. If it was a query where you have replaced or you have placed the file type in the beginning instead of putting it at the end, it'll still be the same results. So this is accurate also. Let me just call it A. I'll call this B, call this C, and D. So C and D are the same, or it wouldn't matter if you moved the file type, or when I say file type, I mean every other advanced operator we'll be talking about will follow the same method or same convention. So unless it is a minus sign, you can switch it. You can put the file type or the term at the end or at the beginning, and it would not make any difference. So C and D is the same. Whereas if you're using a minus sign, don't begin writing your query with a minus sign. What other okay. So another thing that we will also want to discuss, since we are talking about how to structure the advanced search operators in the query situation, I will take the same example and write some minus signs, which in fact, let me continue with this right here. So let's call it an E. And if I'm writing it, if I write it like this versus if I wrote it this way, between E and F, what do you think is a correct way of using the minus sign with the file type, of course? Think about it, let me know. Anyone?
I think that using the or again would be necessary.
Here, right?
Based on the fact that in E you've got you're asking it to do sort of contradictory things.
Yeah, ideally, that's what we learned from the examples before, like right here. That's what we learned. Unless we put the or, file type would not work. Or they would work against each other without the or, right? And
Yeah.
what you're saying, it makes sense. But in the ways of how the algorithms work in Google, I can tell you that in the case of E and F, F would be incorrect to write. It's the opposite actually. And
Okay.
E would be the correct way of writing it. And the logic I try to make the best logic out of it and try to explain it the best I can. But of course, um, I mean, looking at the outcome, we can only assume. We don't get any instructions from Google, but here is my best thought. With the minus sign in E, what we are saying is that we don't want PDF and we don't want XLS. Means that both of these we do not want, right? And when we use a minus sign, it is going to treat these two instances in separated by, I guess, the type of files or differentiated with the file type. We are saying don't include this and don't include XLS. It is it does not need the OR because it's not an option that we are telling the search to do. We are giving it a definite instruction. Whenever you use a minus sign anywhere, even with the words, uh, forget about there is a file type advanced operator there. Even if it is words that we want to be excluded, with the minus sign, you don't use OR at all. Uh, Same thing we do with the advanced operators. We don't necessarily have to put the OR. What will happen when you put the OR as in F is that the search would look at what it can conveniently take out as if it is, no, not conveniently, I take my words back. What it will do is that it will only look for the or execute the function up to the first instance of the file type you have used, which where you have the PDF, and it will ignore everything after or even or is ignored. Okay, so it is not going to go and make a choice between what needs to be excluded. It assumes that you know what needs to be excluded as a definitive exclusion. It is not an optional thing. So whenever there is a minus sign, this dilemma or this thing which is works opposite of where we have absolute command situation and we open it with OR, it would not function the same way when you're using the minus command. Right. So I think that's this is the best I can explain. Thing is that sometimes it's so confusing. But once we get a hang of certain rules and we keep practicing with it, and based on trial and error at times, it gives us a lot of insight and gives us that proficiency that it comes as a second nature. You could, when you're doing searches, you don't make these mistakes anymore. It just depends on practice and your ability, your conscious mind of when you're writing queries. You have to keep, you know, keep your, I guess, remember all those do's and don't do's, and then it becomes second nature. It becomes easy. So even though they look complicated, but for me, for instance, if I'm doing my searches like every day, and I don't want a lot of errors, I have less time. I'll be more careful. I'll be more mindful until the time it becomes more of a, of a process that comes automatically, right? So just for now, you can just think of it as a learning phase. Later, it'll become easy. So this we are done with the file type, I think, for now. Unless I find something very peculiar or unusual, or maybe few search queries that I find interesting, we can discuss. That way, we'll get done with the file type today, and we can start with. Um, well, I wanted to do asterisk. I don't want to forget that. So we'll do asterisk after. Now, let's look at some examples with the file type, if it makes sense. Now, some of these operators we haven't done, so I can't use these. Anything very specific. I'll just use this as an example. I'll take this query. If I want to make this query better, or for it to be, um, you know, correctly structured, is there something that I can do to improve my search with, maybe adding something, removing something, all from what we have done so far, nothing that we're not familiar with. So we've got file type here written twice. We've got census, the word census 2013 written twice. I'd like to make it a little better. So if I have to write it, what should I do? First thing is,
I would remove the duplicate. I would take out one of the census 2013,
correct.
and then I would
What
put
else?
census 2013 at the beginning.
Mhm. So I should remove the file type PDF from the, uh, you know, being used as the first instance. Maybe put it here then. Oh, where did it jump? Sorry about this one. Where did it go? Okay, I'm just putting like this.
And then I would put an or in between the PDF and Excel file types.
Okay, this is correct, eh?
I think so.
Politically correct. It's technically correct, but it is the PDF that I would not want PDF to compete with XLS, even with OR in between. I, just get rid of this. That's the last touch. Now I think, because I know even if I put XLS there, it's just invariably you'll find PDF, or it's overwhelmingly PDFs that will keep coming. You won't even find XLS. So this is what it's going to go for. One more thing I can do though. I mean, let me try that, and that's one of the things we learned. So I would first of all, let me bring this back to its original format where it had the word Excel. So this was one, and then this was the other one where I got rid of OR. And now let me make it even uh, more, let's say, giving me even more results or better results. And better results, I get told you, it doesn't depend on like the volume of results you get. That's not a good notion or a good sort of way of describing if the results are accurate, less accurate, or more accurate. It's just the quality of the results we focus on. So even if we get more results, at times it is a necessity. You need more results or more choices. So what I'm about to do is to use, yes, probably you guessed it. Can I do this? Hmm. I think I can. I'll get more results using making it work like 4.3. Works better when I'm using PDF only. But what I just by using a colon sign, I get more results. I get even those pages that are listing PDFs, not necessarily indexed PDFs are coming. PDFs are coming. but even listed PDFs are going to show up. So I get more results for these two terms, Elasticsearch and Census 2013. Would those two terms would be part of the title that is listed as PDF files, or anything that is appearing on the content pages that has a link or a further link to PDFs. Not again, I keep saying not indexed as PDFs, but listed as PDF files. So if the file name says in the HTML code, it says Elasticsearch semantics, textual structure, this, and that being a title is just mentioned there along with a link that you click on and takes you to another PDF, which is not a direct PDF but could be internally generated. Those PDFs can also be found as listed only because you have chosen to use colon sign and not written the whole word file type. If you wrote file type, the restriction is so strict that it'll only look for index PDFs, not the ones that are, um, displayed on those content pages. So you'll get more results if I have to do it this way. One more thing we could do or not do is what I'm going to ask by using the colon sign only. What if I have to use the colon sign to find multiple files uh, without using the file type? So if I use this, can I use any other function? Like, can I write, let's say if it wasn't PDF, let's say if it was PPT, and I also want something that is XLS or something that is doc. Can I do it like this? No, I cannot. Can I do it this way? No, I cannot. So the whenever you're using a colon sign with the declared property value against the property names, which could be Census 2000 and Elasticsearch, I can only use one instance of colon sign only. Okay, so that's the last, I guess, thing that I forgot. But other than that, we've covered everything under the sun for the file PDF. And I keep reminding you, but think of these functions as standard functions um, that would work with other advanced operators in a similar way. Okay. So even if we are using index in URL later on or in title or whatever else, we know that OR, what the OR sign is capable of doing, what the minus sign has restrictions for, or what is the format in which you can write something with the minus sign. These would apply all the same, generally everywhere. There is a bit of a flexibility where multiple instances of the same operators can be used without the OR, and those are the ones that will come as we look for the other sort of other operators. That functionality might differ a little bit or make it a little bit different. But generally, this is how it shapes up. Okay, so we've done this part. Uh, so I'm going to stop right here on file type. Okay. Would you have, by any chance, about say about 10-15 minutes if we go over the time limit of 2 hours we're supposed to finish up? Like if I get done, let's say at 8:15 my time, would you have additional 15 minutes for me?
Sure.
Wondering. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Thank you. So let's do the aesthetics before we forget, because aesthetic is very important. For various reasons, we'll be using aesthetics later on. And I just wanted to be cleared up before we get there. Where was it? Okay, just give me a moment. I'll be able to find it, perhaps. Okay, never mind. Okay, I'll use these slides. These are not typically what I'm looking for, but okay, it has the material that I need. So all good. Now, asterisk is what we call it's a placeholder. It's a temporary placement, or it denotes something that needs to be found by the search based on its own best judgment, uh, and based on what it looks for with relationship to, or uh, being next to, or being depending on the placement, whatever exists on either side of it would determine what is missing um, at the point where it is actually placed. So we will look at the way in which the asterisk can be useful for finding, let's say, misspelled words or spellings that you don't remember. There is just terminology that I would like to tell you two types of ways in which we define if it is. And by the way, the process is called truncation. Truncation, I don't know literally what it means, but for us to discuss it as a placeholder is, I think, a better terminology. But with the way it describes the two ways in which it is differentiated, one is called internal truncation, when let's say one of the alphabets or the spelling is missing. So if I have to write color and I don't necessarily want the search to ignore the spelling, because it can be spelled as COLOUR or COLOR, it just depends. So not to miss out on both of these ways in which we can find it, we are going to put the asterisk in between what is controversial or what we don't want missed out. So it can look for OR or OUR. So this is where we can even call it wildcard, or something that allows for the search engine to use its own will to fill in the gap or fill in what could be missing. So where the placement is will depend on what part of the spelling or what part of the wordings are missing. So in this case, because the asterisk placement is in between a single search word, color, it is called internal truncation. If it is something that follows or it's placed towards the end of a word or a search phrase, it is called end truncation. It doesn't matter. I mean, these two truncations are meaningless unless you know the utilization of how it can look for longer sentences, a lot of search phrases, or many words missing in between. So this is where the we don't worry about what's internal truncation or end truncation. What difference does it make? We just want asterisk to be used in the best way possible. So we look at in fact, I'll just jump to the examples because that would explain it. I don't really, I'm not very fond of the terminologies. It's just the formation of or structuring of the search queries with these operators that is important, and how to be more creative in using it. These examples are important. These are basic examples. Then we do advanced examples. So let's suppose it is the Mary Ellen Bates is what the name is of someone we are looking for. So Ellen can be ELLEN, ELLAN. I don't know the spelling. So I just place the asterisk right after whatever, wherever the it's missing the alphabets or the word I'm not sure of. So I just put the asterisk here, no big deal. Middle name, I don't know, so I put ELL. You will also notice while we are doing these queries, I haven't used a lot of quotation enclosed. Like typically, I mean, people do that. And even asterisk, when you put inside of the quotation, is treated as a function or something that is identified as exclusively a placeholder, whereas any other symbol that you're going to put inside of the quotations or any of the search phrase that has certain stop notations or stop words, to for them to be recognized, if you recall anything inside of the quoted search phrases, even if it is stop words, they are to be matched exactly as they are written or how they are structured inside of the quoted phrase that you create. But the only exception is the asterisks, where asterisk has a different meaning. It is not matched as is or as how it is placed inside of the search phrase. If you don't understand the concept, I can just write it and show you. Otherwise, we'll just continue. Uh, you know what I'm talking about with but the mirror image or whatever is placed inside of the quote is matched as is, including question marks, any other notations or symbol, which otherwise, if they're not placed in within quotes, they are ignored totally. So that was the concept of putting things inside of the codes to make it enforceable or to be matched exactly as is. Okay, I don't think it's easy to explain. So I'm going to use the example. Copy, just using it as a name. Asterisk, asterisk. Okay, so let's say email. Let's suppose this is the query. This question mark is a stop mark, like it is not considered or it is not something that the search engine would interpret. It is a notation. Okay. If you had put something like this over here, email, and this sign, it is considered as word followed by the symbol, whereas the word is recognized and symbol is dropped because it is a stop symbol. So hashtag in this case particularly, same way the this notation, okay, is ignored. But if I want it to be searched as is, I would probably put it in quotation marks like this. I would probably have to put Y because in email and contact, A and D operand is ignored. So for me to get this recognized and searched the way it is written, including the question mark, I have to put it within quotations. So all of it, including the question mark, needs to be matched exactly how it is placed inside of the quotation. It's not like it like it will have to match it exactly the way it is written. So each of these words, including the symbols, have to be a mirror image of something to be found. And then even with email and contacts, if I want these two words to include A and D, without quotation marks, it will be ignored. So I have to put the whole thing within quotes for the search to recognize and make sure that A and D comes between email and contact, and email is the first word and contact is the last. So everything, the way it is written, have to be matched. This is what the quotation marks does. Okay. But supposing taking the same example, if I put asterisk here, or I put asterisk here, it is not like it is going to match it as if it is, the notation that have to be found as it is written, or as it is placed before the two L's and the asterisk in between Allen and Bates. Uh, in theory, it should match it as if it is the image it is supposed to look for, exact image of it. But it will not function as does in the case of one. Um, it will make sure that the search will understand what is the reason for putting the asterisk here. So even if you put hashtag, it will be matched as hashtag in between these wordings and the word Bates, just because you have placed it within quotation marks. But the exception is when you put the asterisks, even if rest of the terms are inside of the quotation marks, the asterisks will give a different meaning or a different signal to the search. So this is just the exception that would be allowed to be interpreted as something that has a function which search will understand. So this is only that's what I'm trying to explain here. Now, as far as the ways in which you can write these queries, let's run them. Okay. So the asterisk would look for, you see, between Mary Jo and Bill Gates, there is this asterisk placement. It could be the middle name, or it could be the uh, two names like Bill Gates and Mary Jo, which may have a relationship in terms of finding a content that would be missing the number of words in between these two names. So it may find one name or one word, or it may find bunch of words or long sentences that could be missing. It's just the way in which the search would be given the option to fill it in with whatever it finds with relationship to Mary Jo or Bill Gates. It wouldn't matter if Bill Gates comes first or Mary Jo comes after the asterisk. What is important is for it to recognize that it could be anything or any number of words. That's why it is called wildcard. There is no embargo on it. There is no restrictor. There is no number of words. Nothing of that sort. It's just like anything goes. In number three, you can also see that putting the asterisk in between, let's say, first name, assuming is Francis, last name Coppola. When you use the asterisk, it has a preferential, it gives a preferential treatment to finding the missing middle name, for instance, of somebody that is famous or has first name Francis, last name Coppola, but the middle name is always going to be something that asterisk will find for someone famous enough, that is more popular enough. So the criteria of finding the missing number of words would be based on what the search thinks as having more importance or having more of a popular term to be filled in, only because it has the option to do that. So that's where the asterisk becomes very loose. But on the other hand, if it is somebody like Francis Ford Coppola, famous for writing, or I guess a director of a movie, Godfather, it would keep fetching Francis Ford Coppola. forward all the time, this will keep coming until you go deep down in later pages. It might just pick up something else also. So this is one of the shortcomings, only because you've given it that option to find something that is more popular, or something that it will decide on its own to be found. In number 4, you can see that these words like to be or to be, it's supposed to be to be or not to be from Shakespeare's play. Thing is that we have to put these within quotes only because to be or these are stop words. So whenever you're using stop words, that without the quotation marks might be ignored, even if you put the asterisks in between for the missing term. The behavior would be for the search to ignore everything on either side of it if they are stop words. So to control it, or to make it better, or to give it a demarcation or define it as something that needs to be treated as referential inside of the quotes, uh, uh, as definitive, and for it to be to not to be ignored, we put it within the quotation marks, and within quotation marks we have used asterisk, as I explained before, why asterisk is treated differently even if you put it within quotes. So here the asterisk would find anything that is missing between or with reference to be, or so we would replace it with the word not. So even if it's a stop word, it will be looked for with reference to be or not to be. Then in number 5, we've got Trump voted on that. This is where in number 5 we are showing that we can use asterisk multiple times, even within for any type of search phrase that is missing few words, uh, but being inside of the quotation marks. So if I have to use asterisk twice, I can also do that as long as everything else is in the quotation marks. Even if it is not, you can still do it, but you want to make it more controlled, because you never know. Uh, if you leave the quotation marks open, there is another problem, even if it is nothing to do with the stop words, or there are no stop words here in this case. Yet, if you take your quotation marks out, then the asterisk would have slightly different behavior. It will not have any parameters or references to look for as anything starting from one word going to another, or it would become indefinite on either side, like from in the beginning, like Trump voted is 2 words, but if I didn't put these in the quotations, you would find that the asterisk would look for any of the words that precedes or are before the word Trump. So it'll keep on searching for lot many results, and it could be long sentences that may have a continuation with the word Trump voted. So the reference that needs to be controlled and demarcation of where it should look for and nothing beyond is to start with the word Trump voted. Okay. And then you put an asterisk. So this could be another reason for you to put the entire statement within quotes to make it easier for the search to find, and for the placeholder to not go beyond looking for anything with reference to whatever is starting before the word Trump, or anything starting after the word bill. So quotation mark is what is really giving it the scope of its search within the parameters inside of whatever is placed in within quotation marks. And these two asterisks would look for the terms in between the word on the, bill, Trump voted, whatever missing on, continuing with on the. So two of these placeholders or placements will find the fillers of what completes this sentence. So these are examples of showing how the asterisks might be placed. We are going to have to do a very complex search with the quotation, with the asterisks. Um, and I'd like to do it in our next session, which is going to be these different structures of how we have used asterisks. And then we're going to go through the exercise, how to make it better, where we can lose the placement sign, and that would work fine against, using multiple instances of the same asterisk. So all those behaviors, and what happens if you use the quotation marks or quotation enclosed or not use it, or can you put the asterisks before you look for something that is continuation after the first, where the sentence starts from, and where it ends. So can you place the asterisks in the beginning or at the end of a search phrase? So these behaviors we are going to study and look for what could make it better. So let's just keep it. I made it on time. So let's just keep this part, because I can't finish this part right now. So keep it for the next session when I see you day after tomorrow. Wednesday, Wednesday. So Wednesday, yeah, we have a class on Wednesday. I'll see you all on day after tomorrow, which would be, when is my next class? 29th, 30th, 31st, 30th. Is it on 30th? 29th, 30th. It's on the 30th. Just check on your calendar, because I've marked it on 30th. I'll check it later also, but I believe it's on Wednesday. So I'd like to continue with asterisks on Wednesday. Would take about 15-20 minutes, and then we'll move on to the advanced operators that we use under the heading of snippets related, like in text, in title, in URL, all in text, all in title, and all in URL. Okay, all good?
Sounds good. See you then.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you
See
very
you
much.
Wednesday.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good night.
Bye.
Take care. Bye bye. See you.